Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Wisdom of the Prophets. My name is Ira Michaelson, and I'm here with my illustrious co-host, Rabbi David Katz, coming to you from the holy city of Tzfat, Israel. Rabbi Katz, how are you this wonderful Motzei Shabbos?
Shavua Tov, Ira Michaelson.
Shavua Tov, Rabbi Katz.
I'm feeling okay. I know, like you and I were talking when we were preparing, and it was one of those Shabboses. It was just, you kind of had to rest up, so I did. And with that said, usually when Shabbos is a lot of learning, I'm pretty exhausted. Mostly Shabbos, as we were saying, this was a restful Shabbos, so I'm feeling pretty good to go and excited for tonight.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the Pasuk that we're going to be talking about tonight. As everybody knows that's been listening, we've been doing a verse-by-verse learning of Isaiah 56. And we read, I'm going to go ahead and read the first two verses in English to kind of catch us up from where we've been. It says, "Thus says Hashem, keep justice and do righteousness, for soon my salvation will come and my righteousness will be revealed. Blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who holds it fast, who keeps the Shabbat, not profaning it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil." And we dealt with, in our last episode, the difference between Enosh and Ben Adam. Right. This week, we're coming into verse 3, which just, I think is going to really, really, really speak to our audience. It really spoke to me. And you're going to bring what I consider another amazing chiddush from the Tanakh.
I want to just interrupt you with 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing some research of my own, and last time I had Shabbos with you, we were getting into the Birkat HaMazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 words that you can translate as kind of like a guy or a person, right? To keep it masculine, just for context. And just because you brought up here the Enosh and the Adam, so I want to just lay this down for the record. In the Birkat HaMazon, where it's the guy who can relate to God with wisdom and bring the shefa down, right? The heavenly bounty, he's called Gvar. In modern Hebrew, you call it the Gever, right? But it's Gvar, which is kind of like Gvora, might. But you would say that a Gvar is a guy, like a real man. It's not the same as like importance, like Moses was a man of God, Ish Elohim. We're not talking spiritually, like what level you're on. It's more kind of the caliber more than level. So Gvar is really where you want to be. The Kohanim in the temple are called Gvar, right? They know how to work the temple. I mean, you can see that it's a very proficient kind of man if he can work the temple. Agreed?
Yeah.
So the Enosh is the guy who brings his offering to the temple. So the Enosh is going to receive instruction from the Kohen, the Gvar. Can you imagine that kind of relationship? Right, I'm going to tell you, hey, go over there, tie your animal up, and we're going to. But right, you're receiving the instruction, right?
Right.
And then Ben Adam, he's less. The Enosh is the one who really has issues with the Ben Adam. So the Enosh is striving for Gvar, and the Ben Adam, he really doesn't know too much, and so the Enosh and him have a lot of the in the Torah, the relationships between don't hurt your brother or blah 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 is between Enosh and Bnei Adam, and the Enosh who's trying to really grow up and ascend, he's really trying to relate and work with the Gvar. A real rabbi or the teacher of Torah, the Kohen, in the biblical sense, is the Gvar, and in the student trying to get teaching is the Enosh. And again, the Ben Adam that we're trying to get into the main scheme of things. And just a Nefesh, the Nefesh is really kind of the Nebuch, Amma Aretz. He really doesn't know what's going on. So a lot of the civil, not penalties, but just kind of strife and struggles are between Nefesh, Ben Adam, Enosh, and Gvar. And from there, you can really understand the context of Ger, Jew, Israel, Levi, Cohen, prophet, judge. There's all, the book of Mishlei is about types. And just as we're coming into our verse today, we'll be able to understand based on the precedent of where we've been with the Enosh and the Adam, right? The Enosh is the Balabas. He's been from, works 9 to 5. He has Shabbos every week like clockwork. And the rabbi will tell him, how to improve. The Ben Adam, he's trying to fight for his identity. And you can see there might be strife between the Enosh and the Ben Adam, right? The fiery ball tshuva that comes to your table, and he gets into it with the Enosh, right? The fiery ball tshuva says, my rabbi said there's Ger Toshav today, right? He says it wrong. The Enosh says what? The Rambam says there's no Ger Toshav to Yovel. And, if there's a Gvar on hand to set things straight, and obviously sometimes you'll have the Bal Nefesh, which means the Amaretz, kind of the ignorant, who just, acts out as such. So there's a lot of Torah personality, especially where we're going. I'm only bringing that in because I know I tried to remember the terminology last time, and I think we can stick to this because it seems like it's a klal or a rule in the you call it ikarim, like principal terms. Right. The Torah refers to these terms, and you can gain a lot of wisdom and understand who's being spoken about in which context, and it just kind of goes together.
Sure.
So.
And speaking of wisdom, so the Gavar would be the guy with Chochmah.
Right.
He would be the guy with wisdom.
Right.
Of those. And then going down the list from there, you have the Enosh and the Ben Adam and the Nefesh.
Right.
Yeah. Very interesting. But let's get into our text for tonight. In Isaiah 56:3. Because I think there's some amazing words in here in the Hebrew that I think that you're going to be able to bring us what the sages say on this. And I think it's going to clear up some things for a lot of people. Right. It says in verse 3, Ve'al Yomar Ben HaNecher Hanilva El Hashem Lemor Havdil Yavdileni Hashem Me'al Amo Ve'al Yomar Hasarim Hein, Hasaris Hein Ani Eitz Yavesh. That's what happens when you're 58 going on 59 and you have eye problems.
I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, and in the Rashi script, the final mem looks like a samach.
Yeah, I know, but I always use my my keratoconus. The fact that I have a corneal disease is an excuse when I misread things. But I think I don't think we're going to get very far. We're going to get far, but we're not going to get very far past, I think, the first several words. V'al Yomar Ben HaNecher HaNilva. And so I'm going to give it to you because I think it's important that we discuss first that word nilva.
So this is a really great word. And that's why I went on the whole Gavar and Enosh. Let's just get into a little word seminar real quick, because that's anyone that knows Ger, non-Jew in the Torah. There's the attacks going around nowadays are Rabbi Katz is conflating terms. No, Rabbi Katz is not conflating terms. Rabbi Katz is bringing the Torah, which is already conflated. Right? There are a lot of terms in the Torah that is called ikar. Ikar is one of the terms that also is perverted. People say, okay, it means main thing. The ikar of Shabbos at Ira's house is, coming to blah, 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 right? The main thing at Ira's table is, let's say, singing songs. It's not, but let's just say it is, right?
Chicken wings.
The ikar. You just reel off the top of your head. What's the ikar? No, that's not what ikar means. Ikar, to pronounce it correctly, instead of the yeshivish, the ikar, ikar. Ikar means, and spelled for those listeners, ayin, yud, kuf, resh. It means principle. Now that's already a stupid term as well. Ikar means, if I tell you, Ira, you're having technical issues on your computer, and I say you need to hit the enter button, is that can you get by with something close by like the shift button or control? No. If I told you to hit enter, it means enter. And the enter button does specific things when you hit it. Right? If they tell you hit Control F to find things in your page, don't hit Enter F. Doesn't work. So the words in the Torah are all ikarim. They're words that have function. So as we said, just a minute ago, if I see the word, the gvar of the temple brought the offerings into blah blah blah, that you know what gvar means. It's a man with wisdom. He's skilled. If it said the enosh worked with the gvar, you have to know the social dynamic. Right? These are not madregas or levels to attain. You don't say, well, I'm holding an enosh now, and hopefully, God willing, in another 3 months, I'll be a gvar. It really doesn't work that way. Right? You might be a gvar in computer programming and a ben adam in hunting. So they're words that are descriptive terms. And every single word in the Tanakh has a description, much like, what do you call it, lexemes of the lexicology, right? And that's what Torah is. So here's a word, that we're going to get into in this verse is hanilva. Hey, nun, lamed, vav, hey. Hanilva, which the hey is just an article in front of it. The word is nilva, which is rooted and closely related as a cognate, the word Levi. We all know Levite, right? The one of the sons of Yaakov, as when Leah gave birth to Levi, now my husband will love me because he is joined onto me. Language to connect. And that's what Levi's name means. Therefore, what is the nilva? The attachments to Israel. Those people who are attached to Jewish people proper. And ger is synonymous with nilva. You can say ger, you can say nilva, and they are the same thing. We have a couple of commentators here. For example, the Metzudas Sion. He says nilva hager, just like Isaiah 14:1, one of our famous verses. And there's other commentaries as well, which focus on explaining what is a nilva. The Evan Ezra says also the gerim. Why do we then say ger in my work? Why do I say ger? The 5 books of Moses, Old Testament, the Chumash, focuses on the word ger. The prophet Isaiah, he really likes the word nilva. It appears, I don't know, maybe a good 15 times throughout the Tanakh. It really is just look, you can get the subtle differences, I'm sure. Like we have in today's show, which we'll get to, also the subtlety between gvar and osh. Is there a difference with nilva and ger? There is. Nilva is just an attachment, whereas ger really carries with it a specific connotation. Is he ger 7 laws? Is he ger eats nevela? Is he ger not idolater? Is he ger of the 7 Canaanite nations? Is he ger gamor, i.e. a convert? Ger is the ikar of the technical sense in the Chumash, 5 books of Moses, whatever. Nilva doesn't carry any halakhic weight. The world of the ger, the book that I co-authored, obviously, could have equally been called the world of the nilva. The only difference is in halakhic terms, where mitzvahs are appreciated, the nilva word isn't really used. So it would have been too generic for our purposes, but it's a great word, and even the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah says that Jacob, Abraham and Isaac, particularly Jacob, they made gerim, and they brought the nilvim onto the family of 70 that went into Egypt to attract the nilvim, which is plural for nilva, the attachments of Israel. When Abraham and Sarah made converts, they were nilva. We are technically most appropriately, my work, what Ira does, we work with the nilvim, the nilva of Israel. I would love to use the word nilva to get rid of the idea of conflated terms, but the sources that I use, which is almost every source that exists outside of the one Rambam and the Navi, because in the traditional Torah sense, nilva is just not used. Ger is the ikar term, the real ikar term. Again, I love the word nilva. I would love to use nilva. It just isn't the exact right word to describe what people are calling the English word Noahide.
Right. So I love that, looking at this. I think the nilva that we're seeing in this verse, I think, is in the nifal binyan, but in the kal of lamed vav hey, it actually means to accompany, which I think is beautiful. It doesn't appear that many times in that form in kal, but I think that's beautiful that it says accompany as well. But I think where I'd like to see you go a little bit with this, because that's been a good foundation that you gave us first, but I think the Radak brings some interesting things about this. And I think it's important that you discuss the idea of nilva as it relates to the Ben HaNecher. Before we get into Ben HaNecher, why is this word nilva so important? Why is it so important to the people that listen to us and to people who identify themselves as ger?
So in your own time, I want to before I get to answer your question or comment. In fact, I don't know if you're swift enough to look this up while I'm talking. In Mishlei, the word nilva as accompaniment, I think the word is levayas chen. Levayas chen in Mishlei, and chen, the Vilna Gaon says, is chachmas nister. Right? So it's like the head, I forget the term, but it's like around, I forget which it's, I think it's a tzaddik or the chacham, I forget what it is that I have to see inside, but the accompaniment of a great man is levayas chen. The accompaniment of grace, and grace can be initial letters, chachmas nister, which is the hidden wisdom. Wow! So that's an Ira Michaelson verse right there.
It's actually in the kal. It's yilvenu.
You found it?
No, but I'm just looking at it in its original. I'm looking at the different binyanim of lamed vav hey.
That verse is one of the best of all time.
Awesome.
So it's the same type of thing. The idea is when I remember when I first got started in this work, I know what ger is, and a lot of people just don't. So I remember I called a rabbi to ask him, what his opinion of is there, what is the limit that a ger toshav of today's ger toshav can get to do things? I.e., what level can a non-Jew learn Torah? I prefer not to use the word ger toshav, because I know it's very complicating for people. But the real truth of the matter is, even though we have the famous Rambam that there's no ger toshav until Jubilee, most authorities do call the ger toshav, which you would call Noahide, they do call that ger toshav. And this is where Ira has always said, you're talking political ger toshav, we're talking philosophical. There really is more than one expression and meaning within the expression ger toshav. So, for that reason, we don't call the book the world of the ger toshav, world of the ger. Again, this sounds like conflated terms, but the Torah is already conflated. So as I called this rabbi and asked him, what can these people do? He didn't understand the question. He said, don't you know how to read a Pashat Rambam? I.e. the reference to the Jubilee. I said, thank you. I do. Thank you very much. And he said, well, there's no merit and reward and blah, blah, bing, jing, bang, boom. For the today, blah, ding, yeah, we know that. Thank you. And what he couldn't get it, after like an hour, I'm trying not to yell at the guy. He's trying not to pull my hair out. He doesn't know why I'm persisting. Until the end, he's saying, well, why would they do it if not to get reward? I said, well, Rabbi, there are people out there. They just happen to love Hashem, and they would like to learn the Torah. And when the Torah mentions the ger, theoretically one day that could be them in Israel, even worldwide, blah, blah, blah. Can they call themselves ger? And he said, but they're not going to get reward for that. Yes, we know that. They don't want anything. They're not getting anything. They're literally gaining nothing but hardship from people that quote the Rambam to them. He said, well, why not? I said, thank you. Why is it a hard question? Everybody hears, what good is it for me? What am I getting out of this? So then they get discouraged. Saints, we don't have the Yovel, the Jubilee, then I'm not really anything. I'm nothing. I might as well do my 7, go to heaven, Noahide, or I'll convert. And I'll get to be, a real status and a real person and, in the castle, they say. right? I made it out that I'm somebody. This is what kills me. There's like 80% of those people that would like to convert because they were told you have to convert or stay 7, go to heaven. Whatever reason, they don't want to convert, can't convert, never wanted to convert, or Noahide just doesn't do it for me. I don't like the N-word. All these things. What do we do with those 80% of mankind? The Torah calls them nilva. Maybe you can also call them ger, but let's just stick to our verse and call them nilva. It's the same thing, and in a kind of a general sense. There's no such thing as I really love God. God doesn't love me back. I would love to serve my God, and God doesn't care about what I do for him. It does not exist. And then people will tell you, you know what? You're just wasting your time. Why don't you get the real reward and convert? Why don't you be a real non-Jew and convert? Or just why don't you be a real Noahide and do your 7? Our verse is coming to lay down the truth that there are people who just are a type of person. Let's for now call them nilva. We'll expand as the show goes on. They love God. They want to keep the Shabbat as the ger Shabbat is. Krisis 9a. No one's speaking about the halakha ger Shabbat. Thank you. And these people have things they can do. In fact, the ger Shabbat, the premise of that Shabbat is to further renounce idolatry. I.e., how does the ger say, I really am not an idolater? He really keeps the ger Shabbat. That's what that is. There's a lot of things people can do. Call them the mitzvot. And the prophet in our verse warns, do not taunt the ger, so to speak. Do not tell them, go away, you're dried up, you're nothing. There is something called nilva, and their efforts are not only are in the end of time when the reward is finally given to mankind, they are in that reckoning, but they are a proper attachment to Israel, and their efforts, their mitzvahs, their avodas Hashem, whatever word you want to fill in the blank there, it is just as valid as any other avodas Hashem. Now, there is Cohen, Levi, Israel, Ger. Those are not levels of greatness. I am not better than Ira because I am a Kohen. It just doesn't work that way. It just means that I am a different type of human than Ira. Chaim Korfin, my co-author, is a different type of human than me and Ira. He's a Levite.
Yeah, it's an obligation thing. I've said this over and over, just to interrupt for a second. The only difference between, Rav David and I is that he has certain obligations that I don't have, but it doesn't put him in a status above me, and it doesn't put me in a status below him. In the same way.
Right,
yeah.
and I don't secretly say Michaelson's such an Israelite. Yeah. I'll tell you, those Israelites. No one does that.
Right.
And Ira's not at home saying, "Oh, I really wish I was a Cohen like Rabbi David Katz." He's not.
I don't.
It's Nourishkeit to think that such things exist.
Sure.
It's just different types of human beings under contract called Bnei Yisrael, the greater house of Israel, to keep the Torah and mitzvahs. Right, I cannot marry a certain type of person, which is where the categories come from, by the way. Kohanim can marry certain kind of people. Israelites, certain kind of people. Levites have their own little thing, and Ger have their own. It is so practical, it can be seen as boring halacha. Now, it's actually not boring, but it's like when you tell people there's a fourth house of Israel, or four houses of Israel, they say, that's not true, David Katz, you're wrong, go away. I say, really? Well, do you know what the 4 houses mean? It means that the Kohen cannot marry this one and that one. It really is just marriage laws. And like, well, that's boring. Therefore, it must not be true. That's like saying, wow, Rosh Hashanah is a very spiritual holiday. What's it mean? It means the first of the year. Oh,
I think I appreciate more the ignorance than I appreciate the political opinion. But I do want to repeat something you said, because I think it's very important to repeat things that sometimes we say really quickly because we know them and we understand them, but sometimes our audience, it might go over their head or they don't hear it in the midst of very important things that you're saying, and that's the thing that you said about the Ger Shabbat being something that's done in order to fulfill Krisis 9a. in order to let it be known that I do not worship idols. That's the reason that they do this. Whether it's Ger Shabbat or whether it's any other, what you say, calling it a mitzvot or whatever they're keeping it for one reason and one reason alone, to let people know that they're not an idolater.
Right.
To fulfill
that's how a lot of mitzvahs are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, Shabbos is great. We learn, rest. But sometimes the ikar, doesn't appear as, wow, hyperbole and all these things, right? And that doesn't mean the Torah is not. It just means understand the initial reason. Mm-hmm. All right, why did you call the book the world of the Ger? That's very confusing and conflated terms. Because the Torah has a word Ger. It says love the Ger, don't taunt the Ger. It doesn't say don't love the Nilva and don't taunt the Nilva. Mm-hmm. Right? I prefer the word Nilva. I think it's a great word. The context, Isaiah is a very poetic prophet. It's beautiful. But, and Ger is kind of a boring, dry term. I didn't pick it because it sounds better or this or that. It just is the right term. And, in a halachic world, it is the most aesthetic halachic term that fits the bill. Judaism doesn't have to always be bells and whistles. Four houses of Israel, that sounds Christian to me. Well, no, actually, to me, it sounds like Talmudic to me. It's about who can marry who. So it doesn't have to always come with fanfare. The initiative is to understand Torah. I always say, and I'll close on this point, the most Talmudic thing you can do is learn the Rishonim, the medieval scholarship to the Talmud. They are, in my opinion, the most poetic authors Judaism has ever seen. But to the uninitiated, they're the most technical and boring and dry writings that we have. I mean, this is really what yeshivish Judaism is all about, in a comical kind of sense, which I think where I'm unique in bringing this message is I bring the yeshivish approach. Let me just explain to you what yeshivish means. Yeshivish attitude is making, depth and three-dimensional things that are generally seen as boring and benign. For example, Ira, you like this. In the Talmud, you have what's called the two dots. You know about this? Mm-hmm. So it's like a famous thing. You say, okay, Moshe, read until the two dots. They said, what's the two dots? The two dots. It means nothing. It's a printer's tool of stop here, and they put two dots to tell you where to stop.
Right.
I've been in yeshivish discussions that can go on for days, making light and fun of the two dots, because that's just what yeshivish is. It takes kind of the mundane things and shows kind of a light to it. All the more so with terminologies in Torah, which are generally seen as, I don't know how you'd call it, just hard to understand terms. But the more yeshivish you get, the more they come to life. And
we should go to Kollel one day just to see them thumb dipping on the two dots.
That's it. I mean, you can have a whole conversation on the two dots. My Rosh Hashiva got me initiated in Talmud. He saw that I had a thing for Talmud. All right, and he said, Dave, let me tell you, there are guys out there in Brooklyn. They have little street corner, little get-togethers where they discuss the terminology of Yevamos. So first of all, Yevamos is Yevamot. Uh-huh. And Yevamot is the Levirate marriage.
Right.
So many of you maybe have seen once in your life the term Levirate marriage. There are guys out there that make a point of having coffee and bagels discussing Yevamos. That's yeshivish.
The funny thing to me is that you couldn't get through one show without doing an imitation of R.W.
It happens, what can I tell you?
So let's try to condense this a little bit when we're talking about the concept of Nilva. So here we have, let's say, for the sake of what we're talking about, we have the Gerim. And this group of people now that have come out, they're no longer, according to Croesus 9a, they're no longer worshiping idols. They're trying to keep mitzvot. They're trying to keep Shabbat. They're, whether they're keeping the Sheva mitzvot or, they're trying to keep more, whatever it is, they're trying to connect to Hashem in what they consider the right way. But they're getting all this pushback. And they're basically saying to themselves, they're getting very discouraged now, and they're sitting there, they're listening to us, and they're saying, why should I do any of this? I don't receive anything for it. I don't receive a reward. I have no identity. I get all this pushback. And then you have the eunuch. Why should I better myself? Why should I lift myself up? I'm dried up. It just doesn't make any sense for me to do any of this, to keep Torah. And yet we have this word that comes up before that we didn't gloss over, but we wanted to deal with Hanilva first, where it says Ben HaNecher. And the thing is that I can't get through my head is how you're going to convince me, Rabbi David Katz, okay, that this is a good thing.
I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to just add one more point to the Nova first.
Of course you are.
Just to strengthen what you said, the basic premise of the verse, where we're going to go in a second with the Ben HaNecher, which we don't know what that is yet, hold on, and the Nilva, which we basically made synonymous with Ger, is the convert, he's kind of plugged into something. If you're an idolater, you're obviously not playing by anything. Then the Nilva is struggling because he has nothing. He has no kids plugged in, no family. He's a lone wolf. He says, I'm not inheriting anything, i.e. receiving anything. I'm not giving anything. I have nothing to give. Therefore, why should Hashem give me? And the answer is, if you love God and you're with God, Hashem gives you, not reward. Don't get the word reward. Just Hashem appreciates what you're doing, and that doesn't go forgotten.
Right.
Now, to answer your question, Michaelson.
I don't know that you can answer my question, Rabbi David Katz.
So the answer is like this.
Wait a minute. Before you even say anything, I want to go to another verse.
Yeah.
Before you answer my question. Okay?
I'm thinking Exodus 12, something like that.
Exactly. Okay? So in Exodus 12:43, we see, let's see. It says in the English, in verse 43, and Hashem said to Moshe and Aharon, this is the statute of the Pesach, no foreigner shall eat it. Now, in the Hebrew it says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe ve'Aharon, zod chukat ha-Pesach, kol ben necher lo yochel bo. Okay? It's same there. It's talking about the Ben HaNecher there. And it even goes on, I think, further in Exodus 12. I believe also in, I think it's verse 48. So how in the world, because it's very clearly telling us that this foreigner here in Exodus 12:43 is not allowed to eat the Pesach, and he's not allowed to eat the Pesach according to all of Chazal. Every source that I've read, Rav David, it talks about the Ben HaNecher being an apostate. So how in the world can Isaiah 56:3 not be the same thing? I don't understand.
That sounds pretty bad.
It is bad.
Wow. So Isaiah must be a bad guy.
I'm not saying Isaiah's a bad guy, but I don't understand how.
But you're saying he is a bad guy because our guy in Isaiah is a good guy. I say.
Okay, you say. So enlighten me.
I'm saying that our guy is a good guy because the connotation comes that he doesn't have a bris milah. He doesn't have circumcision. And he adheres to the land, the far-off non-Jewish land. Mm-hmm. I want to say he's coming to make something good out of it.
Okay. So what you're telling me is that Isaiah 56:3, that this foreigner that is being spoken of is different than the foreigner in Exodus 12:43.
Oh, man, you showed your cards too soon, Ira.
I did?
I was hoping to get a nice little contrived fight. You didn't want to go there. You didn't want to go there.
No, we're playing with you guys. We're playing with our audience tonight. But
so I was hoping to dramatize a little more.
I know, but it's important that we. You know what it is? I don't want to. Speaking of the term conflate, I don't want to conflate, and I don't want to disguise it in a way that something as important as this concept that we're going to bring tonight is missed.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Right. Okay.
In a reverse psychology dramatized exhibition. You ready, Michaelson?
Sure.
Ira, you made a very bad error in the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody out there, Ira's bringing me chapter 12 in Exodus, the B'nai HaNecher. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know how you want to translate that. I don't know how your art scroll calls it, foreigners, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically told me that my take on Isaiah, that I'm saying they're good here. You want to say, how can that be? Mm-hmm. What was your mistake, Ira Michaelson? This mistake that we're dramatizing everybody makes. Go ahead.
What was my mistake?
Yeah.
My mistake was not, well, I can tell you one of the things that I think was my mistake is that I'm looking at the Hebrew of both of them, and one is completely different than the other.
Thank you. That is the mistake of everybody on planet Earth that learns Torah.
Mm-hmm.
That was not Ira's mistake, by the way. We're dramatizing this.
Right.
In our drama here, Ira took chapter 12, and he's trying to convince me and basically BS me that Isaiah 56:3 is the same term. And we're going to argue about that for like months. No, the Rambam, with Jubilee, right? Whatever genre you're in, whatever it is, I guarantee you this is the fight you're going to have. It's, Rashi brings the pshat to the Torah. Does he? Or does he bring the pshuto? Pshuto, pshat, same thing. Mm-hmm. Is it? So here, in our verse in Isaiah 56:3, it is not B'nai HaNecher. It is Ben HaNecher. Big difference in one letter, hey. If I don't know that, Ira and I are going to fight to the end of time, and there will be no winner.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to say the guy in chapter 12 by Exodus is evil. I'm going to say the guy in Isaiah is good. No one will get to the bottom of it. I pass it to you, Ira. Shed some light on this. Get our readers out of this conflict of conflated terms. Why are they not conflated terms?
So, from my understanding, and I think it's important that the audience know that we did get into this fight when we were preparing for the show, because obviously we prepare, we learn together, but basically with my health issues right now, we're not able to be in person to really hash these things out. So when we were prepared for the show, we got into this because I looked at it and I looked at all the sources and what Chazal says about Ben HaNecher or B'nai HaNecher. And I'm like saying, there's no way. How is he going to come to me and tell me that this is a good thing? It's got to be talking about the same thing. But yet, when I went back, when we had this discussion, and I realized that such a simple letter as a hey could make that much of a difference. And I went in and I looked at not just the sources, but then looked at Tanakh and did a study of every single time that the Ben HaNecher or B'nai HaNecher appears in mostly very negative terms. It really opened up a whole new world of the ger to me, so to speak. And it's amazing to me that there is a difference here. And obviously we're talking about two completely different types of people, which is why I made the point that in Exodus 12:43 and 12:48, then when it uses the term Ben HaNecher or B'nai HaNecher, minus the hay, being an apostate, that's just what it's talking about. And more importantly, that when it identifies a Ben HaNecher as an apostate, it doesn't just have to be a foreigner, meaning that it's not just somebody from the nations or somebody who would be called a Gentile. Actually, in some of our sources, and we talked about this, Onkelos and Mechilta, the Rashbi, and some of the sources that we went over, it actually Some of them say that it's both a Gentile and a Jew. Some of them say that it's just a Jew. Some of them say that it's just a Gentile. But the point is that this could be either one.
This is Rabbi Hirsch.
Yeah, Rabbi Hirsch.
Rabbi Hirsch on the Ger Toshav verses. Mm-hmm. More than saying who's a Ger Toshav, who's a Noah, he says, you know what? I'm not interested in your politics. Just don't be a Nachri.
Exactly.
If you're a Jew or non-Jew, if you're a non-Jew, you have just the same burden on you. Stop being a Nachri.
Right.
If you're a Jewish apostate, stop being a Nachri.
And I think he
want to fix the world? Don't be a Nachri.
Sure, I think he uses kanachri. I think we talked about like a Nachri.
Right.
Yeah,
that's the halach. Yeah, the halachic thing for a Jew,
right,
is to be kanachri. But his ideological statement, right, mm-hmm. is don't do Nachri stuff.
Exactly.
Jew and non-Jew, stop doing Nachri things. That's don't be Ben HaNecher, B'nai Necher. Mm-hmm. You need to be Ezrachi if you're a Jew. You need to be Torah Chad Ger Ezrach if you're a non-Jew.
Right.
Very simple.
So now that we've identified this, and we've identified that there's a huge difference just based on a hey. And of course, I know we're going to get pushback on this. I know that after the political people rather than the philosophical people will get their hands on this podcast. They'll go to town with it, but I need you now to go into in as much detail as you can why it's important that the hay appears there and how Ben HaNecher really cements this whole thing together that we're talking about. The Nilva, HaNecher, this idea of keeping the mitzvot, this idea that we're coming off of in context right after two verses that talk about the blessing of the man who does this, the Anosh, the Ben Adam who does this, who holds it fast, who keeps the Shabbat, not profaning it, keeping his hands from doing evil. And then Hashem goes right into this idea of the Ben HaNecher.
I mean, this is the class, you can see the prophecy of Isaiah. Right, the first question I get, asked all the time, Rabbi Katz, why does Isaiah 56:3 talk about the Nachri? Is that a true question, Ira Michaelson?
Oh, absolutely.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
Nachri.
No. It's not a true question. I'm saying it's a true question in the sense that
they ask that.
We're always asked that.
Is that question valid?
No. But it's a question we get all the time.
Right, but is their question valid?
Of course it's not, but I would have said, if you would have asked me that 3 weeks ago, I would have said yes.
That's it. But that's why there's miscommunication. Can a Ger Toshav keep Shabbos? Ira Michaelson.
Can a Ger Toshav keep Shabbos? A Ger Toshav can keep a Shabbos.
That's right. Look at the details, people. Mm-hmm. The difference between your question being right, valid, invalid, listened to, mocked, is that subtle.
Hey.
It is so great of an error to say why, and I don't mean like, your punished error, just communication error. Why would you, when you say Isaiah 56:3, why is this speaking about the Nachri? It isn't. When a Ger Toshav can keep Shabbos, he can keep a Shabbos. People then hear this and they say, Nachri, Isaiah 56:3 equals bad. Mm-hmm. The rabbi you ask, when you ask him, why does it say Nachri? He's already not even going to look it up. He's going to say Ben HaNecher is Nachri. It's just kind of programming in the mind to get to the point where you can ascertain HaNecher versus Necher is like making a joke out of the two dots in the Talmud. I mean, you have to really get into it to make those kind of distinctions. Not to make it a joke, but the two dots are so benign. It's like, how could you ever think it's anything? In the Malbim commentary of Ger, he often says there's a difference between Ger and Ha-Ger. Ha-Ger, if I remember correctly, he says is usually Ger Tzedek, whereas Ger can be either Ger Tzedek or Ger Toshav. Hmm. And this is just one small example of how the Torah works according to what I call printer's wisdom, or the fine print of the Torah. Now, Ira will tell everybody, and I love hearing you tell people this, this is what we do when we learn. We love to learn the fine print. those little olives that go send you off to go look things up. The Rhiannon, Targum, Yonason in our text, the Aramaic translation, and you get out the Aramaic dictionary. The more fine you make your learning, the wisdom grows exponentially. So if you tell me, look up Nachri, you're saying no wisdom. Once we get it down to the point where we can look up in the concordancia, the concordance, whereas every word in the Talmud, the Tanakh, and we saw there's a difference between Ben HaNecher and Ben HaNecher. Every time we looked up Ben HaNecher or the B'nai Necher, it's the apostate, not a nice guy. Mm-hmm. B'nai HaNecher, it's the guy that gets a bad rap. And why does he get a bad rap? Because everyone calls him a Nachri. Right? Oh, you're not circumcised? Oh, you're a goy. Is that really? I'm a Nilva. I love God. But if you're not circumcised, he just gets a bad rap. The prophet says, quit giving him a bad rap. Quit calling him Nachri. When in your house, Ira, Ida Blom was visiting when we talked about this, right? Right. And Ida's going to be listening to this. I told Ida, I said, can I call you Ida? Can I call you Ira? It's just one letter different. Who cares? Right? You Ira. I'll start calling Ira Ida. Hi, Ida. How you? Right? Man, one letter. Who cares? Or I remember in a wrestling tournament in high school, they called me Davis Katz. My name is Davis now. Right? Davis. And I tell people my name work. A guy's name is Bob. You say, how do you feel about the name Bob? He says, I like the name Bob. And I say, you're very comfortable. People call you, hey, Bob. I said, what would you do if I started calling you Steve? He said, I wouldn't like that very much. Why? Why can't I just call you Steve? He says, because my name is Bob. That's right. Wisdom is extremely sensitive. If I started calling Ira, hi, Ira, it's going to get real old real quick. Just a different inflection in my voice. Mm-hmm. And it's going to become a mocking and a jest, and eventually I'm going to get punched.
Right.
So we think that for wisdom, it's got to be like, whoa, a brand new word. We call the non-Jew haka, fika, fuka, minka, pupa. No, we don't. We call it ger. But we call converts ger, Rabbi Katz. So what? Was there a hey? The letter hey in the context? What was the context of the verse? The printer's wisdom looks for the smallest differences to accentuate and express the greatest wisdom. Ira and I learned how to buy knives from Ira, about cooking. I bought what I thought was a great knife. Ira told me, that's like the knife that the guys in the kitchen use. That's not a chef's knife. But only one that would know that is Ira. Someone who's a chef. I'm saying a knife is a knife, Ira. Cost me a good couple $100 shekels. I should be good to go.
Right.
But that's not how it works. There are subtle differences on my knife that I wouldn't even begin to appreciate. Right? The letter hey, so to speak, on that knife. And it takes an expert to know. But the difference is there's a wisdom in my knife. Ira can say, yeah, your knife is good for cutting tomatoes. This knife is good for... I wouldn't know that. So B'nai HaNecher, Ben HaNecher, that hey is a massive, massive wisdom, and it carries a huge, nafkamina, outcome differential in where you go with it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you used that term huge, because it is huge. I mean, if you were to come to my house and look at my knives hanging on the wall, because I have these magnets, that have my knives up, you would pull down probably the knife that looks the nicest to you. But it's not necessarily the best knife on that magnet. As a matter of fact, the knife on that magnet that's probably the best one looks the worst. It's got the cheapest handle on it, but the blade is forged by a company that were sword makers going back to the days of the samurai. Okay? They just didn't think it was important to use really high quality material in the handle.
And I'm going to focus on what you said. I wouldn't have thought that was important.
Right.
That is the number one expression, I think. Ger's convert. What you're really saying is, I didn't know it was that important of a term, Rabbi Katz.
But let's talk about how important that is, because when you understand the subtle difference, made by one letter, the hey, you don't even realize that every time you're reading that word necher in the Tanakh, that it doesn't necessarily refer to somebody who's not part of Israel. And what I'm talking about is the Jew. So much so that when I did my research on this afterwards, and actually while you and I were preparing, there was one verse that jumped out to me in Tehillim 1844, where it uses necher in there. And it wasn't even that word that jumped out to me. It was another Hebrew word that was translated into English. Okay, and I'm going to read you the verse. It says, as soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Except that word cringing there in the Hebrew doesn't mean cringing. It actually means to feign obedience. Okay, so if I reread that to you in English, as soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Necher came feigning obedience to me. If you look at that now as a necher being potentially not just somebody who's not Jewish, but could be a Jew who's kanachri, who's like a nachri, who's doing things like a nachri, that's gives you a whole different context of a word, which is what really jumped out to me, because we have this happening on both sides. You and I often talk about, let's say, the Messianic movement, of Christians that dress like Jews, wear kippot, wear tzitzit, but they believe in JC. This could very much be related to them, a necher who feigns obedience to God. On the same hand, you have people that walk around that wear the dress, that are Jewish, that do it, they wear the tzitzit, they kippot, they follow Torah, and for all intents and purposes, the way they treat other Jews, they would be considered necher as well.
So then we see the letter hey in front of the word nilva. Mm-hmm. Should I make the same conclusion about hanilva and nilva? No. Because I didn't learn that.
Right.
Maybe there is a difference. I have not learned it. Maybe I'm teaching Nova and Hanilva wrong. I don't know. I don't think I am. Because we know that the hey, it can mean the. Exactly. But with ger, for example, it's a huge difference.
Right.
So how do you know when it's a huge difference versus a small grammatical term? Well, how does Ira know how to cut stuff with a knife and I don't? One guy's educated, one guy isn't. There's no shortcut for education. All right, you have to. There's no shortcut. So to use Noahide in English is a big Band-Aid and shortcut, and it just really doesn't solve anything.
Right. And so basically, what we're saying is, when you talked about the way we learn, and the idea that we don't let one reference pass by us until we've exhausted every reference, every aleph, every base, every gimel and dalet. Every time we see a source being given and it says, go here and look at this, go there and look at that, we do it. Most people don't, because they don't think it's important, because to them, Ben HaNecher is just a nachri. Why do I need to look further?
That's it. And when I was a Bo Tshuva, many years ago, I remember the most ignorant, arrogant, egotistical thing that I ever did, and it's embarrassing. I remember learning the Art Scroll Chumash, just like all of you. All right, I had it. I'm reading it, and there were times in the commentary it said to look in the Rambam, Mary Rambam, and sometimes Ramban Nancy. And I call this egotistical because it was. I mean, it's cute and funny, but listen to what I'm saying. I actually told myself, Art Scroll made a mistake. It's the same guy. And I swore up and down. Right? It's like, I'm thinking to myself, number one, what is a Rambam? And you're actually telling me there's a Rambam and a Ramban. Sure. Mm-hmm. They're little green guys with flashlights, Martians too. It's the same guy. Uh-huh. So obviously Art Scroll made a mistake. And it's like the kind of mistake that you can let happen, I mean, I'm just basically making my own theology. I'm explaining to myself, they have this thing. They just they let some mistakes go, Now, thank God, I learned very quickly there was a Rambam and a Ramban. But imagine if I would have been, by really by the curse of God, if I would have been in some kind of teaching position, Baal Tshuva after like 3 months. Well, there's the Rambam and Ramban. I mean, it would have been a cult. And I think everybody, when you first start learning Torah, you make dumb mistakes like that. We all do.
Sure.
But that's why you grow up, you get educated, you go to yeshiva, do what you got to do, because you realize, number one, it's an evil mistake. Now, it was an honest mistake with Ramban, but some people don't let it go. Some people want that mistake to continue through their entire learning. When the Rambam says goy, and then he changes it to Ben Noach, it's the same thing. No, it isn't. Eventually, you have to face the idea of the fine print. You have to eventually face wisdom. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in an English translation and the whole cringing thing, like you said. Your Art Scroll is the gospel, all these things, and it's just, look, Art Scroll does good work, but on the cover of their Talmuds in English, it says very clearly, and we learned this in yeshiva as like a mantra, to be used as an aid to Talmud study. Mm-hmm. It does not say as a replacement to Talmud study. Right. Noahide is an aid to non-Jewish study. It is not the replacement to Jewish study.
And an English translation of the Tanakh is not a replacement for learning Hebrew and understanding what the text actually says. And I know that that's difficult for a lot of people in our audience to hear because it's beyond the scope of their learning at this point. But if you really want something badly enough, in the same way that you want badly enough to connect yourself to Hashem in the right way, la'at la'at, we have an expression in Hebrew here in Israel, slowly, slowly, you can slowly learn. Find somebody that can help you learn, find sources that you can help you learn, and little by little, you'll start to learn the text and understand what it really says. Rabbi Katz, let's tie the whole thing together. Verse 3, V'al Yomar Ben HaNecher HaNilva El Hashem Lemor Havdel Yavdileni Hashem Me'al Amo V'al Yomar Hasaris Hein Ani Eitz Yabesh. What are we? Let's tie this whole thing together.
I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to go in the pshat. I'm going to just off the cuff tie it together. What Ira and I are trying to teach, and this is connected to our work and the Mazel wisdom stuff that we're getting into. We've been working on, as Ira said, lot. To me, this is the bottom line. We've all made bad decisions. We've all ended up in places that are not optimal, right? I didn't get to yeshiva until I was 22. I would have loved to have been there, 14, and have the luxury of learning Shas 20 times by my 18th birthday, okay? We've all come from idolatry and cults, whatever it is, backgrounds that are not conducive to learning, advanced age. The bottom line, and this is the bottom line, enlightenment is possible to everybody. No one's left out. And the hard work is not like saying, if you want to be a gold medal wrestler, you have to do 20 million push-ups a day. That's not the hard work we're talking about. Can you be committed? Can you just be dedicated to the study? If you can, same thing as our Nilva Ben HaNecher here. Okay? I am going on record and promising you. You can, and I'm going to speak from my heart, so don't say, now he's saying they can keep Shabbos. No. But hear me out. Based on all things equal. If you're going to keep Shabbos and you're going to learn and you're going to get into the Hebrew and you're going to learn the Talmud, you're going to do the mitzvot, okay? It will be very hard the first day, the second day, the third day, the first year. But I promise you, any realm of getting chokhmah, wisdom, it is not gone from this world. It is in exile. When you want to get enlightened, God will bring you out of exile and he will give it to you. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy in terms of shortcuts and band-aids, instant enlightenment. But if you are steady and dedicated, and the biggest word is authentic, and you can learn to appreciate the hey of Ben HaNecher versus Ben HaNecher, and you're not opposed to getting up, opening up a dictionary, maybe then cross-referencing it in another dictionary, and then calling Ira because you don't understand. Can he help you understand what is the thing here? And he sends you to a different source. If you can handle that kind of pain on your being, that is the path of the tree of life. You will become wise. You will be given wisdom. It's a lifelong thing. You're never done. But on the path, you can do it. You have to know it's possible. Get rid of the Band-Aids. Get rid of the stupid arguments. And be aware that there are differences that subtle and that you can actually learn them. You can even become a bit of a master of it. The internet is a fabulous tool. You can, many websites to buy the books. You have to be willing to participate in the learning of Torah. Anybody can. Everyone is invited to. There's nobody left out, just like our Nilva.
Amen. And you have to believe it's worth it. And not only believe that it's worth it, but know that it's worth it. And I can tell you that it is, as well as Rabbi Katz, and speaking for him as well. So we want to thank you for listening. This is another episode, another amazing episode, I think. It was really great, of Wisdom of the Prophets. And we hope you'll continue to listen to us as we bring you this learning from the holy city of Tzfat, Israel. Shalom, shalom.